Good day, sir. This is our report for Group 2. Our report for Group 2 is about technology's impact on privacy. What is the meaning of technology? That technology provides opportunity for companies and criminals to take those right away through practices like data mining and identity theft. About privacy, the meaning of privacy refers to the right to determine when and to what extent information about oneself can be communicated to others. The aims of this paper is to assess the impact of technology on the private lives of people. Emphasis on the application for the information profession. The issues discussed are the concept of privacy, influence of technology on the processing of personal private information, the relevance of this influence for information profession, and proposed solution to any issues. These are the example scenario. The impact of technology has affected almost every individual, from nursery pupil to the oldest senior citizens. A laptop being used by a 3-year-old is now common. Senior citizens who used to hate computers are now using Facebook and Twitter. An employee who came to work without his mobile phone will be forced to go back home, for he or she cannot live a day without his phone. During my daughter's 18th birthday, the resort owner told me, "Sir, because of my gross income has significantly increased due to the frequency reunion prepared by my customers, which has usually initiated due to posting a class picture in Facebook."
On the other hand, there are problems brought about by stalkers who use technologies in order to obtain private information from Facebook users by pretending to be a friend. Hence, there are also drawbacks brought about by technological advance. In addition to this are new technologies such as advanced data mining, facial recognition devices, retinal scanner, and other advanced in biometric. The goal of this chapter is to address how these new technologies and programs can be used without preying one's privacy. To do so, we proceed to look at the right to privacy from several angles, especially how it's conceived, constitutionally, legally, and normatively by looking at public opinion and jurisprudence.
Constitutional provision on privacy. The word privacy was only mentioned once in the 1987 Philippine Constitution. Thus, the privacy of communication and correspondence shall be inviolable except upon lawful order or of the court, or when public safety or order requires otherwise as prescribed by law. Any evidence obtained in violation of this or in the preceding section shall be inadmissible for any purposes in any proceeding.
Exception 2. Public order or safety requirement. This provision is best explained without regard to technology. In the Philippines, terrorists often carry out their attacks in public places such as LRT, MRT station, and shopping malls. Hence, if Pedro, carrying his precious wedding gift, especially wrapped and sealed for wedding purposes, decided to ride at any LRT/MRT station, he could not prevent the security guards to compel him to open and show the content of the gift. This is because of the principle that the general welfare of the public is the supreme law. Thus, when one decides to ride in LRT/MRT or to travel by plane, he is temporarily surrendering his rights to privacy because public safety requires it. Exception 3. Express provision of the law. There are so many laws which provide an express provision requiring surrender of one's privacy. For instance, under the anti-money laundering law, when an individual deposits in one transaction an amount of at least 300,000 pesos in a bank, the latter is obligated by law to provide the name, as well as the personal information of the depositor, to the Anti-Money Laundering Council. Since this book is not intended for law students, we do not need to enumerate all laws and explain each of them. It is enough that the reader understands their meaning.
The rational relationship test. The Supreme Court will first determine if the policy has a reasonable purposes or rational basis for being enacted by the legislature. If the answer is yes, the policy is deemed to be legitimate. The Supreme Court will then determine if policy is reasonable related to attaining the identified legitimate end. If the answer is yes, the Supreme Court will go no further and the policy will be upheld. As an example, the EC upheld the constitutionality of RA 3019, the Anti-Graft and Corrupt Practices Act, as a valid police power measure. It declared that the law and compelling a public officer to make an annual report disclosing his assets and liabilities, his source of income and expenses, did not infringe on the individual's right of privacy. The law was enacted to promote morality in public administration by curtailing and minimizing the opportunities for official corruption and maintaining as a standard of honesty in the public service.
Reasonable expectation of privacy. Section 1 and Section 4 of the Anti-Wiretapping Act providers. Section 1. It shall be unlawful for any person not being authorized by all parties to any private communication or spoken word, to tap of any wire or cable, or by using any other device or arrangement, to secretly overhear, intercept, or record such communication or spoken word by using a device commonly known as dictaphone or dictograph or detectaphone or walkie-talkie or tape recorder or however otherwise described. So sa section 1, klaro kay sa akong gibasa nga siya, bawal o unlawful ang pag-intercept or pag-record sa mga any private communication. Sa mga any private communication. So, section 4. Any communication or spoken word or existence, contents, substance, purport, effect, or meaning of the same or any part thereof, or any information therein contained or secured by any person in violation of the preceding section of this act shall not be admissible in evidence in any judicial, legislative, or administrative hearing investigation. So in this statement, so sa naka-information diri sa section 1, tananan mong information diha dili sa nimong magamit as evidence sa mga government, sa mga court, or any kwan ng legal administrative hearing. So next. Legislative intent is determined principally from the language of statute. Where the language of statute is clear and unambiguous, the law is applied according to its express terms, and interpretation would be resorted to only where a literal interpretation would be either impossible or absurd or would lead to an injustice. So, if the law is easy to understand and clear, so we must follow it. So, kung i-try na to siya interpret differently, so it would lead to an injustice. So last statement, stated differently, where the law is clear, there is no room for interpretation. Since the law expressly provides that it shall be unlawful for any person not being authorized by all parties to any private communication or spoken word. So, kung legal ang pag-intercept or pag-record sa mga private communication, so we must follow it. And thank you.
Practicing our logical reasonable skill. Since there's an express provision of the law, of course, that authorization must be given by all parties, the AC is without any authority to interpret otherwise, because that is the clear intention of Congress. Doing so would be tantamount to indirectly amending the law, which is not vested by the Constitution in the legislature. What cannot be done directly cannot be done directly. So, it says there that when it comes to interpreting laws related to privacy and technology, it's essential to stick closely to what the law expressly says. It says what cannot be done directly cannot be done directly. It implies that if a certain action or outcome is prohibited or not authorized by law explicitly, attempting to achieve it indirectly or through alternative means, it is also not permissible. So that is all.
The concept of identity theft. Identity thief is a type of consumer fraud and occurs when a person knowingly uses another person's information in a fraudulent manner for the purpose of obtaining goods, services, or credit. The identity thief looks for information he can use to create official documents or gain access to financial accounts. Nowadays, phishing and computer hacking are the most prevalent means of obtaining personal information. Phishing is a high-tech scam that uses spam or follow-up messages to deceive a person into disclosing his credit card numbers, bank account information, social security numbers, password, or other sensitive information. It is mostly done to an email. Phishers send an email or pop-up messages that claims to be apart from a business organization that you deal with the internet services providers, bank, online payment services, or even government agencies. The message usually says that the person needs to update and validate his account information. It threatens some bad consequences if he does not respond. The message directs them to a website that looks like it is legitimate. The purpose of this is to deceive the person into divulging his personal information so that operators can steal his identity and abuse or commit crimes in his name. So, we must be careful and be cautious before we surrender our personal information to anyone. Worse, if we become a victim of this scheme, the process of determination by our law enforcement agency is not easy, despite the fact that our law is not enough in our dear country.